Hey everyone, this is Cameron from Renegade Animation on renegadepopculture.com. If you like what we do, please give us a like, follow, and a rating, and share out our episodes on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us. We are everywhere. If you can, consider supporting our Patreon. That way we can keep doing what we love, and that's talking about the massive spring 2024 anime season. And now, on with the show.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And we've got Teresa.
Hi, everybody.
And we have, honestly, way too much anime. So much so that, I'll be honest, this is the first time I'm coming in massively underprepared, which is probably one of my first takeaways of spring 2024. But on the whole, let's go around and give our general impressions of the season before we dive into some other major talking points, of which there are many. Teresa, I'll start with you. How did you feel about spring 2024?
Yes, I have to agree that I felt overwhelmed by so much anime, but I would say that there wasn't too many really bad ones. I feel like it was a little meh, a little mid as a season as a whole. It wasn't like banger after banger, but the ones that were good were really good. So I'm going to still be watching anime every season. I would say that I was surprised that the action category was so strong. And the other category wasn't as strong as I usually find it as. But overall, I found a lot of good shows that I want to continue with. So, spring, there are some good original animes and some adaptations.
Yes, I will definitely be talking a little bit more about action in a second. But Cameron, what about your overall thoughts of the season?
Okay, so I will agree with the first takeaway is that there's just so much anime. Too much anime, man. 32 shows. We set out to watch 32 shows. I did it. I am not mentally well after this. It's always taxing. I love doing these podcasts because we get to see in real time the trends of what's getting made in the anime industry right now. But here's my spicy hot take. I don't think this was an overall amazing spring season. Not as good as previous ones that we've tackled. Mostly because I found, like, after I ranked all my anime that I've watched, the best anime outscored the worst by one title.
Wow.
That's usually not a good sign, at least for me, because I checked the previous spring season. There were only like 3 titles in the bad, while the best were like 12 shows. Yeah. Here, the best were 9 shows and then 8 shows that I would consider the worst, and all for different reasons of bad, with one just being like god awful. But as usual, when the good was good, the bangers were just, they hit hard. You could tell when a good show is going to hit harder than others. And that's when, of course, they have the writing down, the animation down, and you are invested with the characters no matter the genre.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, the other thing that makes an anime great is that extra flavor. Obviously, you want great characters, you want great animation. Those are like kind of the basics, but when it has that little bit of extra something that gets you hooked, that's when you know you have a winner. And I'd say out of the 2 heavy hitters when it comes to anime distribution, that being Crunchyroll and High Dive, don't worry, Hulu, we'll get to you in a second. High Dive is the winner because 2 of their acquisitions will be in my top 5.
They honestly had the best one, like overall quality, because they only had 2 shows.
Right, because those were their only 2, they're automatically batting 1,000.
I mean, like, granted, that
I agree.
doesn't, like, I hope that doesn't mean anything that they only picked up 2 shows. The 2 that they did pick up were great. But Crunchyroll, you gotta, like, get better at picking what you're going to bring over, buddy. So let's start with the first takeaway, or at least for me, my first takeaway. The isekai genre regressed this season, especially because the previous season of anime, the winter season, had a good handful of fantasy isekai shows that were extremely top tier stuff. Except for this season, I struggled to find a really good fantasy isekai show. The only one I would say was actually top tier was Yatagarasu, The Raven Does Not Choose the Lord, because it committed to this fantasy period drama setting with some fantastical folklore elements. Even though I wish it had a dub, because there was just a lot of talking with this one, and the talking isn't bad. It's just a lot of world building with this one. And it wasn't as gripping as that one Naoko Yamada Science Saru show that she made like back in 2021, the Heiki story.
Oh, yeah.
But I still liked it.
Mhm.
All the other fantasy shows really just went into a battle royale of trying to be at least the least awful of the bunch, with the banished hero chooses as he pleases is my contender for the worst of the year so far.
Oof.
What a lazy show. Not only does it have one of those premises where it's like, oh, I'm going to go do as I please now that I'm not the main hero, except he still becomes the main hero. And then, of course, gets a harem of girls that all have the personality depth of a puddle. It is, frankly, the ugliest looking show of the season. The animation was rough, and I mean rough. There were even some shows where I had to make sure I was saying their names correctly, because there was like I was reincarnated as the seventh prince, and then as a reincarnated aristocrat, which both have the same problems where older female characters lust after our child protagonist. But I at least give him kudos. Like, reincarnated aristocrat, his isekai power is more passive, where he looks for the potential in people, and that's he can find what people are the best at, whether it's using a spear, bow and arrow, magic, leadership, or what have you. And I Was Reincarnated as the Seventh Prince has some really charming animation, even though with the whole ick factor with it. So at the very least, it's fun to watch if you're just there for the animation. But then we get stuff like, oh, what was it? I have to, golly, so many anime. Chilling in Another World with level 2 super cheat skills. They at least get to the chilling part, but it's still very much power fantasy, harem stuff that almost leaves room for an interesting world and commentary, since our lead is more or less isekai from one fantasy world where humanoid species are treated lesser, and it is now in a world where that's not true. But then it just doesn't do anything with it. It gets straight to the harem stuff. The New Gate, heaven forbid, tries something new. It starts out like the very tail end of a Sword Art Online arc, and then becomes an isekai because our player character gets zapped 500 years into the future or whatever, into the game's world where all the NPCs and characters now are alive. And it's one of those shows where you can't think too hard about how that works, because when you introduce a player into it, like real people, is this character just catatonic right now? Like, or what have you. It's also just not very interesting. And then Remonster almost reaches the mark, like passes with being distinct with our main hero being reincarnated as a goblin and then becoming stronger. But I hope you don't like pacing and world building and good characters, because he's reincarnated as a goblin, and then by the end of episode 3 he's already like the strongest person in the world with a harem, of course. And of course, since it's a show with goblins, the goblins breed with humans because stupid world building reasons. This was a struggle. I expect this from a summer season drop, not a spring season where there's usually something there to keep you invested.
And there's so many of them. So that means there's so many that missed the mark.
Exactly. They all have the same problems because the light novel isekai author scene has everyone cannibalizing one another through incestuous like rituals and are stealing from one another without thinking, hey, maybe I could do something a little different. And they don't.
Kind of sounds like I dodged a bullet by sitting out the isekai genre this season. Like, I did
Same.
watch The New Gate, but
Yeah,
even that was just kind of like, this kind of feels like, how you said, the end of a Sword Art Online arc, and then just kind of continues all the usual isekai tropes that we've seen 1,000 times. At least with The Raven does not choose its master, that has more meat on its bones. Like, it has the political intrigue. It's got characters that you want to follow. The setting is interesting, and there's a little bit of a fantasy element to it, but it's more magical realism than anything else. When the focus is just more on the characters and the world building. Like, that show I would watch so much more than like the same kind of recycled isekai plot 60 times over.
Yeah. So, Mike, what is your next takeaway?
Let's talk about action, because this is honestly the genre that had the most good in it, other than The New Gate, which again, we've talked about isekai already, but pretty much everything in the action genre I just adored. Everything from Go Go Loser Ranger on Disney Plus and or Hulu to probably the best show of the season, or at least one of them, Windbreaker, which is, you have our delinquent high school setting, Furin High School, and they're basically treated as the folk heroes of this town, where they go around beating up the other delinquents who are causing trouble. And it is immediately awesome. From like the second you see our main character, you just know, yeah, I'm gonna like this one for sure.
Yeah, the action genre didn't have that many titles in this one. And the only one I would consider the worst, but even then by worst, it's like the exception to the rule of the action category, was Viral Hit, which was more of like a dark comedy with some action in it. Well, it's based off of a manhwa about this young man who accidentally becomes a viral sensation when he gets into a fight with a bully, and then has to learn mixed martial arts, I think, or maybe it's boxing or kickboxing, to keep becoming a viral hit, because it's all about the commentary of people chasing the white dragon of internet fame by any means necessary, where you have your extremely unlikable scumbags, influencer like folks who scam and are just terrible people, and then you have our lead, and the story doesn't fully work, but you can kind of see what they want to talk about with like bullying and online sensationalism and what have you, even though it's not a great looking show. but it at least has something you can talk about with it. I'd rather have something to talk about that's not hitting the mark at all times, but at least it has something going on for it. Because otherwise, you have Mission Yozakura Family, which is a zany spy action comedy about a boy who loses his family and joins this really quirky family of spies. You have Go Go Loser Ranger, which flips the Power Ranger formula, where the Power Rangers are actually the villains. And our main hero is a henchman who is going to take down the Power Rangers from the inside, which, golly, all the commentary that you can see thrown at you and such
Oh,
in this
yes.
one show. I wish we had the English dub for it. Apparently, it's out overseas right now, and we aren't getting it until later, but I can't wait to hear Zeno Robinson as our lead.
That's perfect casting right there.
And then the big hype action show of the season was, of course, going to be Kaiju number 8.
Oh, yeah.
Which has our main character who, thank God, is an adult.
Yes.
Like, golly. We had a few shows this season that have adult characters, and it's like, thank you, authors and writers, for remembering not everyone's a 16-year-old. Where he lives in a world where kaijus reign and attack humanity. And instead of being one of the people who takes down the kaiju, he's part of the cleanup crew. And of course, because he's a battle show protagonist, he has a good heart and big ambitions. And I love that at first, you think he's not going to get any superpowers. I mean, of course, if you've read the manga, you know what's going to happen. But you don't see him get his powers until the very end of the first episode. And it's not even framed as like, oh, he gets superpowers. He gets attacked by a small bug monster, and then he gains these powers to turn into a kaiju. And it's framed in this weird, dark, comedic horror take instead of him like transforming at the very end of the first episode to fight something. They use that time to build up his character more. And that's so fun to watch for a show like this. Because the next big thing to isekai shows are the shonen battle series.
Yeah, for sure.
And you need to start differentiating yourself here. And this is a great way to do so. But of course, my favorite is Windbreaker also, which is animated by Cloverworks. But like, even if it did have just great animation and good action, like, man, the action is great in this show. The core of the show's story is what gets you about a boy who feels isolated and alone in the world and then finds and adapts to this new found family scenario. It's so good. It's like probably one of the few shows I'm going to keep watching after the spring season that we're done with.
For sure. I think also what works, and I don't think it's just for the action category, but I feel like the shows when they're good are taking something like familiar that like about kaiju monsters, and you think this is a show Windbreaker's about like bullies and like student gangs or whatever, and then it kind of turns it on its head and it takes that like kind of pop culture reference and like mashes it up and with something actually interesting. And I think that's what gets you to watch week in, week out when it's these simulcasts. Is like you really need to have something where you're not going to know what happens next, unlike the isekai category where you're like, oh, I don't even care what happens next, or like I'm going to predict this whole season, and why would I keep watching? That's how I feel about isekai anyway. So I think that was one of my takeovers was and obviously it comes down to the writing is core here. But I felt like that was also true for Astronaut as well. It was like I thought it was going to be one thing and it gave me like Sailor Moon vibes, and then I was like, oh, it's something totally different. And that's what I want from my anime. And these school
I,
gangs and Windbreaker are adorable. Like I just want to give them all hugs, even though they're ready to beat people up.
it's like someone made a teenage version of the Yakuza games, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're right.
and I want to jump off of that because one of my takeaways is it's always going to come down to writing and storytelling. Because one of my favorite shows of the season is Train to the End of the World, which is essentially, even though Japan has its own version of Infinity Train with the retro classic Galaxy Express 39, this is essentially another traveling on a train show where the whole world gets warped because of the constant chase for new technology with no care in the world of what happens to us in the long run. And it has this group of girls trying to go and find her friend. And it's really compelling stuff. And it has like these weird story beats, like how there's one town where people let mushrooms grow out of their head because they rather live a peaceful, short life than live on and then die alone or what have you. And first of all, that was a very creepy episode. Like,
Oh,
this
for
show
sure.
almost teeters into horror at times, and I can't wait to see the rest of it. And then you get stuff like Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night, which I think became one of the big breakout shows, and one of the two shows that High Dive brought over, and where it follows these young girls who chase their artistic dreams and identities. And at first I was like, I don't know, is this going to be different than from Oshinoko, which was, the big breakout show from last year that also High Dive brought over, funny enough. You just were pulled into their passion and what drives them as characters. Even something that's a little wonky, like the romance categories, since we had like a condition called love, which has our two leads working out what they want in a romantic relationship, despite the fact that the boy of the duo is a little creepy at points.
Just a little.
And then Taidama Okiri is a really sweet gay romance about a couple that moved to the neighborhood to start a new life with their child. And it's part of the Omegaverse stuff, which is weird because the show doesn't really call attention to it.
It feels so matter of fact when they describe alphas and omegas. It's just like, that's just what it is. What about it?
Also, they were talking about like pheromones and like where it comes from like with wolves, it's not about pheromones, it's about like power dominance and not dominance and how you can like make other alphas like relax basically. Is that's very TLDR that someone there's a lot more Omegaverse experts on the internet if you guys care. But like that's why I thought it was so weird where it was kind of like there's this registration around it and like and you're not supposed to intermix, but they did anyway, and they didn't really seem to have that much consequences for it. So I was just like, well, why'd you tell me? Like, what's the big deal?
It's so funny when they do bring that stuff up because it comes out of the blue. It's otherwise a really wholesome show.
It's very wholesome.
And then it's like, whoa, you're an alpha? And it's like, oh God, I forgot about this.
Oh, like you were just like, oh wait, that's in this anime.
Yeah. And then there's probably the best one of the bunch, Whisper Me a Love Song, where it's another girl love romance about a guitarist in a band, and what starts out as like a super hyped fan of hers, and then realizing that like, oh, she's just a fan, she doesn't see me as a love interest as like I see her, but we're going to work out this friendship and romance together. And it's really compelling stuff, and I very much loved the chemistry and the animation. I know not everything can be Bocchi the Rock. That's why I was kind of worried about this show going into this season, because I was like, Bocchi the Rock kind of became that show of anime girls and rock music and such. I'm not going to blame it for not being Bocchi the Rock.
I think it's just more wholesome.
you can't be there can only be one Bocchi the Rock.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not edgy enough.
So what this one does is just becomes a very good romance story.
Yeah.
With likable characters, and that's all you need.
The thing that I love about Whisper Me a Love Song is it actually kind of goes into the different types of love too.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other lead, the one who's the super fan, she kind of has this sort of, I don't want to say an existential crisis, but she is kind of thinking like, wait, I don't have the same love that other people do. And I like that episode 3 kind of takes the time to really unpack that. And also just the chemistry between our two romantic leads is great. The music is incredible. One of my takeaways was just High Dive wins when it comes to music and romance. And everything that has already been said about both this and Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night, I stand by that 100%.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And then I think one of my favorite of the season, because of its storytelling, because it really focuses on it, is Tonari no Yokai-san, and how the characters are extremely likable, and the show doesn't really even bother to explain or have this overarching conflict narrative of humans and yokai living with one another. And it's very low key and sweet. The characters have all these fascinating details about them. It's like some of the yokai, like when they become yokai, are like, well, now I have to find my purpose because I don't have the same one I had when I was like a normal cat or what have you. And it's probably going to be one of my low-key favorite shows of the season. I had no idea what I was jumping into with this show. I hope we get more shows like this with the next season where I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm jumping in, and then hell yeah.
That's the way I like it.
Same.
So another takeaway, and maybe we'll have some agreement with this. Why the hell are we now being picky about what we bring over with anime companies? Because, and this doesn't happen often, there was a huge outcry of, so is no one going to pick up girls band Cry? Which, listen, I know it would have been another girl love, girl friendship anime based around music. But that first clip that showed up online, that CGI animation was superb.
Mm-hmm.
And you think like, wow, this looks amazing. Who's bringing it over? No one. No one brought it over. Not High Dive, not Crunchyroll, not Netflix, not Hulu, Disney, not even like Peacock or Tubi or really any company said, yeah, no, we're going to pass it over for right now. And it's like, you're willing to bring over some of the crappiest anime, some of the dumbest shows, and yet Girls Band Cry and the other girl-based sports anime, Rinkai, got no chance, at least for right now.
That's the thing. I'm hoping that for whatever reason, there's just some, copyright BS that Crunchyroll just couldn't figure out. And so they'll put the whole season when it's done on either Crunchyroll or maybe Netflix gets it, but not until like the whole series is complete or whatever. That just kind of sucks for Western audiences who want to see shows like those two, but just kind of can't unless they sail the seven seas.
The big problem is that like they'll bring over everything. Anime is in high demand for better or for worse. And yet here we are going back to that time period of, oh, we're not going to bring over everything. And what we are going to bring over is because it was the cheapest thing to bring over. Crunchyroll and High Dive will bring over stuff like based off of a video game that never comes out here. So why can't we do that with some of these isekai? Because I mean, I get it. You don't know what's going to be a hit until it smacks you in the face. But I have to think some of these were never going to be hits. There's a reason why X-Arm has no dub. It has no Blu-ray. So I want to make this make sense, companies. Teresa, what's another takeaway from your experience?
Yeah, I would say that I feel like I say this every season probably, but there's still the creepy, pervy elements floating around. And some in the isekai. I wish they would just like go away. But the ones that really made me turn and pause was the grandma and grandpa turned young, and then like their grandchild was like obsessed with him because he's so cute when the grandpa turned young, and I thought that was just like very weird. I
That
liked the
show was
premise of the
weird.
show. Like without that, it would have been fine. But I was like, this is and then the mom did it as well. Dad, I didn't realize you were so cute. And I'm like, did you not see a picture of him from childhood? Like what? This is weird. And then in Jellyfish, even they had them like in the bath and like showing them, getting dressed and like kind of full back nudity. And I was like, why? Like they are actually kids. They're in like high school, I guess.
I got confused about that. Are they like
Yeah, I was like,
high
I don't know.
schoolers or are they like young adults? The art style can go either way.
It made it sound like they were like 16, where they're like in whatever like school they're supposed to go, like if it's like if they want to go to college before they go to university, that
Oh
kind
god.
of thing.
And then there was like stuff like the mini sides of voice acting, radio.
Yes.
I was gonna bring that one up.
Oh
Yeah.
god, that third episode, like, yo,
Yeah.
I get it. Anime can have a predominantly male audience, but you gotta know by now, in the year 2024, those are not realistic dialogue bits. Like, golly, enough. That trope popped up way more often than I think I would have liked it to.
And the one in Mysterious Disappearances, I don't remember but the main woman's name in the first episode, like her boobs were like gigantic for no reason.
Back problems galore.
I
Golly,
was
that
like,
design.
what is this? And they show her changing clothes and getting into her pajamas for no good reason. I was
That
like,
that one
not
was
that one though.
weird. Like, because that was another takeaway from mine was a lot of potential and premises were underutilized, especially the two that you mentioned with grandma and grandpa turn young again.
Yeah, they
Because
started off okay, and then they just went,
yeah, the first few minutes of grandma and grandpa turn young again
yeah,
is really sweet. Like the grandfather regrets that he could not give his wife a more fulfilling life. And now you think, oh, they're young, they're going to do that. But then the show just swerves into shenanigan territory. And it's more about the jokes of, ha ha, they're young. And they try to have more going on later on with the magic that turned them young,
yeah,
working in odd ways. But it's like, I don't care.
yeah.
And speaking of shows where it's just like, hey, interesting premise, mysterious disappearances was like, you got the cool supernatural stuff going on, which have horror undertones. But then a mass majority of the jokes are like, hey, did you know our lead has really big boobs? I don't think you noticed, so we're going to shove them in your face at any time with a boob joke.
I couldn't tell the tone of that show. It confused me in the first episode. I was like, what?
And then there was like the reverse problem with Unnamed Memory, where, okay, cool premise of a prince looking to undo his curse, so he befriends a witch to try to get it undone. And yet they want you to believe that they have this big, grand romance. And I'm like, they need salt. This is a bland fantasy show with a bland romance. And you can't be doing that when the other romance anime are doing it so much better. I know a lot of people like this next one, but I found this one to be like the most disappointing of the season with Oblivion Battery, the Mappa anime of the season.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
I know, I get it. The core story of these two friends who were torn apart because of an accident had a good idea there. There's a good building the friendship back up story. You better like the blonde's hairy nipple joke because that's the one joke that he has outside of liking porn and hating his mom, because there is not much else to that character until he starts to get back into the groove of playing baseball.
Yeah, I fell asleep on that one too many times and gave up.
Yeah, I will be honest, this might be Mappa's worst anime since what was the name of that one that Haley like absolutely despised?
Oh, Ichitan deities?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But this you just transitioned beautifully into my next takeaway, which is I think my problem with sports anime is you have to try harder to make me care about the sport because if you don't, you've lost me. And I think one of the perfect examples of a sports anime that doesn't even try to get you to care is High Speed Etoile, which if you don't really care about Formula One racing, this is not going to move the needle for you. The first episode alone is nothing more than just the race and some commentary. And I don't think you even meet the main character until episode 2. And
Yeah,
even
no,
then, and even then, she's not really even a character.
no, that show sucked. That is one of my bottom 8 shows of the season. It's number 2 because it's not Spanish hero lives as he pleases. There are some cool elements. A futuristic race setting where the introduction of AI into Formula One racing could be interesting. You can tell they made the designs as garish and overly detailed as possible so you know
Hmm.
who the main characters are, but then gave it the ugliest CGI of the season. And there could have been something interesting, but then if I wanted to watch a good racing show, I'd go back to the fall season's Overtake.
Okay, yeah, I was like, didn't we just have a racing show?
Yeah, we did.
Why do we need another one?
And then there's stuff like other premises that had potential and then dropped. Were like the salad bowl of eccentrics, where the one pro I'll give it is it has a great opening song. That's a bop. But then with its whole premise of a bunch of spiritual ladies from another kingdom from like the past traverse into this human world, or maybe yokai or something or whatever, are in this now modern day society. Like it first starts with this detective with our main character who is 13 years old. So yikes. And then it just drops those characters, not completely, but focuses on the swordswoman who accompanies the 13-year-old, who is maybe too prideful or too ill-informed or uneducated for her own good. It breaks that suspension of disbelief of you cannot be this stupid. And okay, it just felt like it was wasting my time. It was trying too hard to be quirky. And then there's like the vampire dormitory. I wanted to like this one. I was curious because of its being the 70th year celebration of this, I guess, publication or studio that animated this show. And the whole premise ignites because our main character was too handsome at her job and gets fired for it. It's like, okay, why? why is that such a plot? And then it essentially turns into Ouran High School Host Club. At first, for like the first episode, you're like, okay, so this young boy is going to get romanced by a vampire, and the vampire is also an otaku. And oh, the main character is actually a girl. And I got bored of it very quickly. And then some other shows are like, I almost forgot about this one because it was just, that forgettable with, I don't think I even talked about it in my editorial.
See?
Studio apartment, good lighting, angel included. Something must have been there to be interesting, but then it turns into a harem with other supernatural girls, and it's so unappealing as a show. It looks generic. The female characters are not interesting. Our male lead is just, they try to make him out to be this super nice guy when all he does is like the bare essential for every step of the way. And then by the third episode, they introduce a snow spirit girl, and it's like, okay, I don't care. That happened a lot with this season. It was just like, after 2 or 3 episodes, I was like, I don't care. You're not good enough to keep my attention. The only thing that kept Tonebow keeping my attention was not its pretty okay golf story of an old man training this super talented young girl to play golf, but for Amazon Prime's one show this season, they got a dub. It is quite frankly the worst English dub I have heard in a long, long time.
So about that dub, I tried to find information about this dub, like who did the recording, who's in the cast. I tried IMDb, I tried My Anime List, Anime News Network, nothing. That is pretty damning when it comes to this dub. And I don't want to make any assumptions about the cast or how Amazon felt about their performance. What you said about this being like one of the worst, I'll say the worst modern dub of an anime, yeah, you're not wrong.
Man, you wouldn't hear a dub like this unless you went all the way back to the Central Park Media days, where no one had an idea of how to make anime dubbing work and how to act naturally. At any moment, it sounds like you're about to get bored with the show, which happens a lot. And then a wild line read happens, and it makes you laugh. Not in an intentional way, but in a way where it's just like, wow, what happened there? Who said, okay, that's good enough?
The delivery when Tombo says like, I'm going to stay on this island forever. I'm not going to go anywhere else. That line killed me, and for absolutely the wrong reasons.
It's meant to be this fiery ambition, like yell of, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be the best golfer. And it's hit with like the most flat line read. So it becomes an unintentional comedy at that point. But I don't think there was anything as aggravating this season as my final takeaway. Disney, if you're going to bring over anime, you have to start advertising them. Say what you will about High Dive and Crunchyroll, they advertise their shows. I see ads for their shows all of the time. Disney and Hulu?
Arrogant.
No. Yeah, none.
It's arrogance that, if they build it, people will come, which is like not it's not the world. But they do this all the time. They do this with like all forms of things they own.
It's wild because they've done this constantly. There was that show from last year, Heavenly Delusion. Amazing show. good luck knowing that it was on Hulu or Disney Plus,
Seriously.
because they had some of the better shows this season with Go Go Loser Rangers, which on a whole is really funny, not just as a comedy or a dark comedy, but also the fact that Disney in the past, when they used to have the rights to Power Rangers, really hated the show. So to have this weird, dark Power Rangers take on their own service is so funny. And they even have like their own like weird little dark dry comedy with The Fable, which is about a hitman who does way too good of a job and has to lie low for a year, but has no idea how to act natural and normal. So he uses all of his hitman training to pretend to be normal, but he comes off extremely awkward. Once the ball gets rolling with this show, it is funny. Well, again, I didn't know that Hulu got it until I looked it up. I think they had like 3 shows this season.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm on Hulu every day and it suggests anime to me every day, sometimes different ones. They didn't suggest any of the new ones to me.
That's just really frustrating. And I think Mother's Basement had a great video about Disney and their lack of attention they give towards anything that isn't Marvel or Star Wars or one of their like high profile originals. It's very frustrating when a lot of the shows that they acquire, actually I'd say all of the shows that they've acquired, are varying degrees of good, but they don't really put in the elbow grease to tell people about them.
They get high profile stuff too, like last either 2 seasons ago or so. They got Undead Unluck. That was a big title for them to have. And it's just like, whoops, hope you know it's there. It's like they don't care. They have it. That's all that matters. By the way, they do have summertime rendering. So please watch that show. It's amazing. But they kept that from us for a good year or so when it was supposed to come out in a previous season. It's not like you can not find forgettable anime this season. Like the last one that I'm going to mention is The Gods Games We Play, which is all about humans versus gods and playing weird games. And yet you won't care about the characters. It's all talk about how the rules work for about half the runtime. The other half is our 2 lead characters being all, this is how smart I am. I'm better than you. Here's why. And then, of course, in the 3rd episode, we have the boob joke, the jealousy of one character having a bigger chest than the other. And it's like, why can't that be pushed to the side and forgotten? Why is it that these 3 shows, The Fables, Mission, Yazakura Family, and Go Go Loser Rangers, are the ones that are not getting the spotlight? This anime industry makes so much money despite the fact they are burning and or killing their artists. It's just not sustainable anymore. Who's going to watch half of these shows from beginning to end? Not many people are, unless you're like a YouTuber whose whole thing is anime.
The best way I can describe the anime industry right now, it's a high-speed train without any brakes.
Because I know we're going to have a lot of shows next season, and there's just, like, I'd have to look at the lineup again. There's not a whole lot that looks interesting outside of the returning shows like Oshino Kogin Season 2 or Tower of God Season 2. I love anime. I keep watching it. I am still watching Delicious in Dungeon every week because it's so good. And I'm going to keep recommending shows to people to check out if they want to get into anime. I'm currently streaming some Power Ranger parody anime with a friend of mine because that's what she was interested in. And you can do this, but you can't just be like shotgunning and flooding the scene with so many shows and then not support all of them. I mean, I get it. Some of them are going to get priority over others, and that's just the way things work. But if you're not going to put in the work to support these shows, then why bother? Like, stop adapting stuff for the sake of adaptation. But even with all that, I still had a good time going through this season, even if I wish there were less anime. I wish we could go all the way back to the summer 2020 season where they only had 10 new shows.
Yeah, that would be good. That's manageable. That's fine.
That's fine. It at least would give you an idea very quickly of what looks good, what looks bad, what are probably going to be hits and misses.
I would honestly rather have less great shows than more kind of mediocre ones.
For sure.
But we know that's not going to happen until
I think this is a lesson all the streamers are learning. I think there was a case when there were less streaming services before the Crunchyroll kind of bought everything, but like it was more niche, so it was fine to have a lot of different things because people were still discovering. But now now they have a monopoly basically. So when you have the monopoly, then people are going to hold you to a different standard. And this is like the number one complaint that Netflix gets is like, you have all this money and then you have all these like things that disappoint. So they really just have to learn to make less business decisions and more like story quality decisions that will, it's almost like they have to gamble on the risk of like a good story will turn out for them, but they're still doing it based on like pure numbers, a lot of them. And I think that's why High Dive doesn't get as many because they don't have enough money to risk, like compared to a Crunchyroll, obviously.
At least a High Dive library of shows each season has the opportunity to be interesting. I don't think I've had a show that was brought over on High Dive from Sentai Filmworks end up as the worst show of the season of the year. Crunchyroll has had many.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have more. They have more potential for crap.
Yeah. So still a decent season. Not as good as last season.
Mm-mm.
But still plenty of good stuff to go around. So, Teresa, what are your top 5, or if you have enough, top 10?
Ugh. I don't know if I have enough for a top 10. I definitely have a top 5, probably very similar to your top 5s that we've mentioned, but I love Train to the End of the World. I love Kaiju 8. I love Go-Go Loser Ranger. I really liked Astronaut. It was right up my alley with the mix of like wholesome coziness and space stuff. And then Tonari no Yokai-san. Those are I would say honorable mention would be Tiedemann Okari, if that's how you say it. I liked Vampire Dormitory. I'm ready to give it a few more chances, but it is on notice. And I really liked Whisper Me a Love Song.
Mike, what about you?
I'm going to go with, and this is in no particular order, these are just the 5 shows that I just love. Kaiju number 8, Windbreaker, Go-Go Loser Ranger, Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night, and Whisper Me a Love Song. And for honorable mentions, let's see, Astronaut for sure, Train to the End of the World, and to a lesser degree, the many sides of voice actor radio.
My top 5 would be Windbreaker, Go-Go Loser Rangers, Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night, Kaiju number 8, and Tonari no Yokai-san. My honorable mentions would go to Whisper Me a Love Song, Train to the End of the World, Mission Yazakura family, and Yatagarasu. Train to the End of the World almost made it to my top 5, but I'm worried about where the story is going to land. It's like that that one anime we talked about way back in 2021 where it dealt with like these girls fighting monsters that represented self-doubt or abuse or toxicity.
Wonder Egg
Priority.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, where started out really interesting and promising, but had a lot of spinning plates and then just crash and burn. I'm hoping that's not the case with Train to the End of the World, but it could be there. Astronaut was another one that could have made it. I love its weird retro mid 2000s anime sensibilities. Like the father trying to be all high and mighty when he's a bum is so funny, and all the animation is so delightful, and there's an absurdity to it all. I don't like the male lead as much. He's too much of a wet blanket, but I'd rather partake with that show than, well, any of the worst ones. Oblivion Battery was also one that floated around the best, only because I could tell the story was getting better. But still, man, hairy nipples is not a funny joke.
Nope.
So, with that, we are done with the spring season. Hopefully, the summer season can bring us a lot of good stuff.
I hope so.
I hope so. I know we dread and kind of joke about summer season being the worst one of the 4 season anime drops, but I'm always hopeful for like the big victory of, oh my god, the summer season had all the best stuff, but we'll see.
Think of it this way. We didn't think the isekai fantasy genre would be one of the best this past winter, so there's always room to be surprised.
Yeah. As long as you're surprising me,
I'm ready.
yeah, I'm down.
But until we cross that bridge, Teresa, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on most social platforms as Teresa Electro. That's Teresa with no H.
And Cameron, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm not calling it X. At Cam's Eye View. I have my own website called camseyeview.biz, where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on various social media at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and that place at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.